Hi, Total Recapped here. Today we will be going through the events of a 2014 American superhero film, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, directed by Joe Russo and Anthony Russo. Now, let's get right into the movie. Retired soldier Sam Wilson jogs around Tidal Basin in Washington early in the morning. Steve Rogers, better known as Captain America, catches up to him, only to complete multiple laps over Sam. When Sam sits down to catch his breath, Steve stops by and the two introduce themselves to each other. Sam knows about Steve's defrosting and asks him how adjusting to new life has been, and Steve replies that he has a lot to catch up on. A car pulls up driven by Natasha Romanoff, also known as Black Widow, and Steve hops in the car. A S.H.I.E.L.D. vessel, the Lemurian Star, has been taken over by pirates, led by George Batroc, a man with a record of 36 kill missions before he was dismissed from the army. Captain America infiltrates the ship and knocks down the pirates' insight, and Black Widow, along with Rumlow and his team, covers him. The hostages are saved, and Batroc fights Captain on the deck. Batroc taunts him by saying that he is nothing without his shield, and Captain defeats him without using one. Captain finds Natasha extracting data from the ship's computer onto a S.H.I.E.L.D. flash drive. Batroc throws a grenade at the two, and Captain grabs Natasha to jump through a window before it explodes. At S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, Steve confronts Nick regarding Natasha's actions. Fury responds that he asked Natasha to do so since Captain wouldn't have been comfortable with it, calling his plans compartmentalized. Fury then takes Rogers to the underground facility where technically advanced killers are being designed to track and hunt down terrorists before they can make their moves. Nick Fury calls it Project Insight, but Steve believes it's more of pointing guns at everyone on Earth rather than protecting them. Steve visits the Smithsonian Museum to attend an exhibition dedicated to Captain himself. There, he reads about his long-gone best friend, James Buchanan Barnes, nicknamed Bucky. He also watches a video from his love interest, Peggy Carter, married after Captain disappeared. Steve goes to meet Peggy, who has grown significantly old and has Alzheimer's. Peggy tells Steve to start over since he didn't get to live a proper life, but falls back into a stage where she thinks she is seeing Steve for the first time after his disappearance and wondering how he is still alive. Fury tries to access the files handed over to him by Natasha on the flash drive, but he cannot get past security, something that was set by himself. He reaches out to Defense Secretary Alexander Pierce meeting with the World Security Council over the matter of hijacking of the Lemurian Star. Fury asks Pierce to delay Project Insight, and Pierce agrees on the condition that Fury sends Iron Man to his niece's birthday. Steve stops by a place where Sam counsels people dealing with life issues. After the group meeting, Sam tells Steve that he lost his friend Riley in battle in Iraq after being shot down in the air with an RPG. Despite the loss of his friend, Sam still loves flying, but it used to be hard for him to fly without his friend back then. When he asks Steve what makes him happy, Steve replies that he doesn't know. As Fury drives, he contacts Agent Maria Hill and asks her to fly to DC to meet him. As he stops at an intersection, a police car pulls up alongside Fury's car on his passenger side. Fury notices that the officers driving the car are looking at him, but jokes around and moves forward. Suddenly, another police car pushes his vehicle, and more police vehicles along with a SWAT team surround him, leaving no way to escape. Finding himself cornered, Fury uses a machine gun and an RPG to make way for his car to self-accelerate to get out of the place. As Fury tries to get to a safe location, a person who appears to be dressed in all black stops him by blasting his car. Luckily, as the mercenary approaches to take Fury, he manages to get out in time by burning a hole in the street. Steve goes back to his apartment and greets his neighbor, Sharon Carter, a nurse by profession. He offers Sharon to use his washing machine in exchange for a cup of coffee, but Sharon puts him off by saying that she has spent a lot of time in an infected ward. Sharon points out that Steve has left his radio on, and Steve grows suspicious of someone invading his apartment. He cautiously enters through the window holding his shield, just in case he needs to defend himself. He finds an injured Fury sitting on his couch and questions him about breaking into his house. Nick lies to him about his wife kicking him out of his house and shows Steve a message on his phone, saying they are being heard and that S.H.I.E.L.D. has been compromised. Before Fury says anything else, he is shot 3 times by a sniper. Fury hands over the flash drive to Steve and asks him not to trust anyone. After hearing the gunshots, Sharon Carter, Agent 13 of the S.H.I.E.L.D. Special Team, comes to check on Steve. Rogers follows the mercenary and throws his shield at him, but he effortlessly handles it and sends it back to Rogers, pushing him back a bit. The next thing Steve knows, the mercenary has disappeared. The doctors operate on Nick, and Natasha asks Steve about the shooter. Steve says that the mercenary is fast, strong, and has a metal arm. The doctors are unable to save Nick Fury. Natasha asks Steve why Fury was at Steve's house, and Steve replies that he doesn't know. Rumlow cuts their conversation and asks Steve to report to the headquarters immediately. Before leaving, Steve hides the flash drive in a gum vending machine. At the headquarters, Pierce presents a theory to Steve that Fury hired Batroc and his pirates to acquire the classified information from the ship and was killed when the deal went wrong. But Steve denies his theory, saying that he knew Fury wouldn't say that. Alexander calls himself, and Fury asks once again why Nick was at Steve's house, and Steve replies that Fury told him not to trust anybody before taking his leave. Steve steps into an elevator where soldiers from the strike team join him at every level when the elevator stops. Steve grows suspicious when he sees a man sweating and another placing his hand over the taser gun. He asks everyone in the elevator if anybody wants to get out before they get started, taunting everyone to attack him. Steve single-handedly beats every last soldier present in the elevator, and Agent Sitwell sees everything from the security cameras. He sends a team to catch Captain America, but they all fail as Rogers breaks the elevator glass and jumps on the ground, using his shield to protect him from the fall damage. Captain takes a motorcycle from the garage and tries to escape, but a Quinjet follows to stop him. Captain uses his shield to destroy the engines of the Quinjet, which leads the machine to crash down, and Captain escapes. Sitwell orders the agents at the headquarters to look out for Rogers. When Sharon questions him, Alexander Pierce claims that Steve is withholding information about Nick Fury's death and calls him a fugitive from S.H.I.E.L.D. Steve arrives at the hospital to get the flash drive he hid in the vending machine. To his surprise, the drive is gone, and Natasha steps in, possessing the drive. Steve pushes her into the storage room and asks her what she knows about the mysterious assassin. She tells him that only she and some people from intelligence know the assassin as the Winter Soldier. He nearly killed her on a mission in Iran, during which the target she was assigned to protect was killed, and he has reportedly been responsible for over 24 assassinations over the past 50 years. They decide to use the flash drive to find out what they can on the Winter Soldier's whereabouts. Meanwhile, the World Security Council pressures Pierce to resume working on a Project Insight. Steve and Natasha disguise themselves as a couple and use a local laptop to find out what's on the drive. Natasha warns Steve that they have precisely about 9 minutes or maybe even less before the people from S.H.I.E.L.D. find them. They find that the signals are coming from training base in Jersey and decide to leave at once. As they descend on the escalator, Natasha spots Rumlow coming and asks Steve to kiss her since the public display of affection makes others uncomfortable and would possibly hide their faces. Steve and Natasha steal a car and drive straight to New Jersey. They make their way into the abandoned military base and enter the facility, the original S.H.I.E.L.D. office. Steve looks behind a bookshelf and uncovers a room full of computers. The only modern type of technology in the room is a small port for the flash drive, and when Natasha inserts it, the drive activates a computer, and a German voice speaks and analyzes the two. The voice belongs to Arnim Zola, a former member of Hydra, who transferred his consciousness into a computer once his body failed him because of a terminal disease. Zola tells the two that his and Red Skull's group Hydra was formed on the belief that humanity could not be trusted with its freedom. After the war, S.H.I.E.L.D. recruited him and other Hydra operatives to conspire against their new employers. He reveals that they were directly responsible for targeting people such as the president and causing the car accident that killed Howard and Maria Stark. Natasha asks Zola about the algorithm which he put behind Project Insight, but Zola tells them that a missile is heading towards their location in less than 30 seconds. Steve and Natasha jump into a hole as the missile hits, destroying the computers. Rumlow and the strike team search for their bodies, but the two are nowhere to be found. At Pierce's home, Renata the housekeeper leaves and Winter Soldier appears in the kitchen. Pierce tells the Winter Soldier to assassinate Captain and Black Widow, but Renata returns to get her phone, only to see the two men talking. Pierce shoots her, saying that she should have knocked. Steve and Natasha stop by Sam's place to lay low since Hydra has been looking for them. Natasha is upset due to her past involvements with Hydra, but Steve tells her that she is still reliable. Sam insists to help Captain America and reveals that he was a part of the Falcon project, not a pilot. He then asks the two to retrieve its equipment, and Steve says it'll be easy. Back in DC, Agent Sitwell meets up with the Senator, who is also a member of Hydra. Sam calls Sitwell with the name Alexander Pierce and threatens him to get in a car and meet him and his friends. Steve and Natasha take Sitwell on a building rooftop and ask him about Zola's algorithm. When he doesn't cooperate, Natasha kicks him off the building, but Sam brings him back by using his Falcon suit which he acquired, and confesses everything he knows. Sitwell tells Rogers that Zola's algorithm is designed to evaluate people's past and detect if they are going to be a threat or not. He also takes the name of a few members of Avengers and states them to be the targets due to their past actions which caused harm to Hydra's plans. The trio is headed back to S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters along with Agent Sitwell, but the Winter Soldier intervenes. He throws Sitwell out of the window to be hit by a truck. The Hydra agents back him up, and they all have to hunt Steve and Natasha down. The Winter Soldier goes after Natasha, and he orders his team to get Steve. Natasha barely manages to escape, and when she's about to be killed by the Mercenary, Captain steps in to defend her. The two men exchange attacks for a while, and Steve manages to unmask the Winter Soldier. Steve is surprised to see his old friend Bucky behind the mask, who was killed 70 years before in a fall. Steve calls him by his name, and the Winter Soldier responds, "Who the hell is Bucky?" The Winter Soldier escapes, and Hydra catches Steve, Natasha, and Sam. Once they are taken inside a car and head back to the headquarters, Agent Hill, disguised as a Hydra member, helps the four of them to escape. She takes the heroes to a secret facility to treat Natasha, and they find Fury lying in bed, very much alive. Meanwhile, Bucky is taken to a Hydra hideout to fix the Winter Soldier's metal arm, where Pierce demands the mission report. Bucky says that he has met Steve before. He also remembers his time during the fall and how Zola brought in who turned him into someone he is today. Pierce praises the Winter Soldier's work and asks him to do it again, but the soldier is still dealing with Steve. Pierce orders the doctors to brainwash him and prepare him for the project. Nick tells Steve and the others that he used the anti-stress serum to lower his heartbeat to 1 beat per minute. He then tells the heroes that Project Insight is about to go live within a few hours, and the 3 helicarriers must be stopped before they form a triangle and lock sights on their targets. Fury entrusts the 3 chips to Steve and his team, each one to be replaced with the current chips to override the control. Steve has a flashback of him and Bucky after his mother's funeral. Sam believes that the person Bucky has become has nothing to do with his former self and that the Winter Soldier must be stopped. But Steve is reluctant and says that he will make him remember everything from the past. The members of the World Security Council arrive at S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, and Pierce provides them with pins that will give them access to everything in the facility. Captain America and Falcon break into the headquarters, and Captain uses a mic that patches him through to every speaker. He tells the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that Pierce is a traitor who is the leader of Hydra, and that the strike team is his acquaintance too, asking the agents to stop the launch from taking place. The members of the Security Council order the soldiers to arrest Pierce. Rumlow walks to an agent working on the launch and asks him to initiate the sequence. Rumlow forces him to keep the agent at gunpoint, but Sharon stops him. Rumlow drops his weapon and uses a knife to cut Sharon's arm, which causes a gunfight to break open between the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra. Amidst the chaos, Rumlow manages to launch the helicarriers and runs away to join his team. Captain and Falcon make their way to the helicarriers, and after fighting the soldiers, they are able to replace the chips on 2 helicarriers. The agents from S.H.I.E.L.D. prepare to aid Captain on his mission, but are ruthlessly massacred by the Winter Soldier. Pierce tries to convince the council members to join him in support of Project Insight, making it sound like protection from potential attacks worldwide. He hands the councilman a glass of champagne, but he refuses to join him and tosses the glass. Pierce pulls out a gun and aims at him, but the councilwoman defends him and takes down the other Hydra members in the room before taking the gun. She removes her disguise to reveal that she's Natasha. She prepares to release all of the data of Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D, but Pierce warns her not to do so. Fury, stepping out of a helicopter, comes as a surprise to Pierce, but he tries to sweetmouth Fury to join him. Knowing Pierce probably changed the retinal scan, Fury removes his eye patch to reveal his scarred, dead eye to override Project Insight along with Pierce, as they are the only two agents of the highest degree needed for that. Using Falcon's help, Steve reaches the third helicarrier to complete his mission. Bucky kicks Captain, making him almost fall from the helicarrier, and breaks one of the wings from Falcon's suit. Falcon has to retreat and can no longer help Steve. Luckily, Steve manages to get back on the helicarrier and heads to replace the chip. Bucky waits for him, and Steve asks him to fight and let him do his work since many people's lives are at stake. A fight breaks out between the Winter Soldier and Captain America, and the soldier swipes the chip from Captain. Pierce sets off the pins he gave the council members, burning deeply into each member's sternum. He threatens to set off Natasha's, forcing Fury and Natasha to put down their guns. At first, Bucky is able to overwhelm Rogers, but Rogers reverts to headlocking Bucky to retrieve the chip. Meanwhile, Sam stops Rumlow from getting to the council room. The satellites lock over 700,000 targets. Captain manages to replace the final chip at the very last moment, despite being shot by Bucky. Instead of targeting the 700,000 civilians, the satellites lock the three helicarriers, and Steve orders Agent Hill to initiate the attack. Pierce orders Natasha to fly him out of the headquarters, but Natasha uses her taser disc to catch Pierce off guard, and Nick shoots him. She gets back up complaining that it stings a lot, and Pierce's final words are, "Hail Hydra." The helicarriers destroy each other, and Steve tries to rescue a trapped Bucky. Steve tries to make him remember that they were friends and refuses to fight, but Bucky says that Steve is his mission and attacks him furiously. As the helicarriers get destroyed and collapse, Steve goes down in the water, but Bucky rescues him by bringing him ashore. He rests an unconscious yet still breathing Captain America on the ground and leaves without a word. Sam takes care of Steve in a hospital, and all the Hydra members are captured one by one. Natasha is presented before a council hearing to answer for her ties to S.H.I.E.L.D. She defends herself by saying that even if they wanted to put her in prison, they could not, because the council members know they need her and her allies before walking away. Meanwhile, Fury gets rid of any trace of his existence, including his passports and eye patch, burning them for good. Steve and Sam meet Nick Fury at his grave, and Fury asks both of them to accompany him to Europe for his next mission, but they both reject the offer. Natasha walks to Steve to hand him over confidential information regarding Bucky's whereabouts, and Sam proposes to tag along to find him. And that was my recap of the movie. I hope you enjoyed it. Now comment on what your favorite part was, and make sure to hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time, this has been Total Recap.